you want another chance with the person that you love, then you need to understand what they're thinking and feeling. You need to understand what's really driving them. And just as you know their strengths, you need to really try to understand their fears and their weaknesses. And if your ex is avoidant, their biggest weakness is always going to be their loneliness. So you're probably wondering what I mean when I say that your ex is lonely. I mean, avoidance seems so independent. It's like they don't really need anyone else in the world. They keep their feelings to themselves and they really handle them all on their own. They seem like they could live totally on their own forever. They seek out solitude at times when really anyone else would reach for connection. But what if I told you that was all an act, and that putting up a brave front like this for so long leaves an avoidant feeling incredibly isolated and lonely? That is the truth about avoidance. Deep down, they don't actually want the solitude that they've surrounded themselves with. If they did, they just wouldn't be in relationships in the first place. So then the question becomes, why? Why do avoidants push people away even when it leaves them with this horrible loneliness? And to answer that question, we need to look at how avoidant attachment works. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into how avoidant attachment forms because that could be a whole video in itself. But really what you need to know is that this has been a part of your ex's personality since they were very young. When we're children, we look to the adults around us to fulfill our needs, both emotional and physical. And when a child reaches for an adult's hand, only to have them pull it away, when they ask for help only to be mocked, when they're told to just, stop crying and grow up, well, that's the moment that avoidant attachment forms. Because that's when a child learns that they can't rely on other people to fulfill their emotional needs. They learn that asking for help only leads to pain and rejection. So they decide to just stop asking for help, to turn inward, and really to rely only on themselves. So now, even though they desperately want that connection that they've been denied for so long, when they even think about opening up, they get terrified. Letting someone in just feels impossible. And so they keep those feelings inside. They go cold and they push you away. They rely on the only strategy that they know, which of course is avoidance. And whatever the circumstances, chances are this played a huge part in your breakup and in your ex's continued silence after the fact. But this same strategy is actually going to lead them back to you. So we've established that your avoidant ex is lonely. So what? Well, the truth is that your avoidant ex's loneliness will help you win them back if you're able to properly follow my advice. So here's what you need to know. Number one, they're only going to push you away for so long. One of the first things that an avoidant will feel after a breakup is relief. Remember, even though it's what they want, they find closeness with another person to be difficult and at times painful. So once the relationship is over, they'll finally have what they think they want: freedom. They'll feel so relieved to no longer have to live up to your standards or change their behavior to fulfill your needs. But that relief is going to fade over time. And with nothing to fill that void, all they're going to feel is their loneliness. And when their loneliness becomes unbearable, they'll begin to think about reaching out to you. So it might take a week, or it might take a month, or even 2 months, but it is going to happen eventually if you allow it to. And the second thing is that you still need to give them space. So when I tell people that their avoidant ex is actually lonely, they often say, well, great. So that means that they want me even if they pretend they don't. So all I need to do is reconnect with them, push through the walls, and give them the closeness that I know they need. Well, I'm sure I don't have to tell you that this is a recipe for disaster. Because the thing with an avoidant is that their loneliness can't be solved with brute force. It's something that's been built up over decades into a fortress. You can't just scale the walls and barge your way in. Because, they may not even be aware that they're actually lonely. In the same way that a fish doesn't know it's wet, these feelings are happening on a subconscious level. So if you show up one day, telling them that they should let you in, even though they're scared, they might laugh in your face and then shut the door. So you really need to take a much more subtle approach. Basically, you can't give your ex a chance to reach for avoidance as a strategy for dealing with you. So when you're too aggressive, they feel that they need to, defend themselves by pulling away. But if you keep your distance, if you give them a lot of space, and you let them set the pace of every interaction that they have, then really, they have no way to pull away from you at all. So instead of avoiding you, they avoid their loneliness by seeking you out. You're essentially using your ex's avoidance against them to win them back. And the number 3 thing you need to know is that avoidance isn't always permanent. Now, many people look at avoidant attachment as a problem to be solved. And while I do understand, how frustrating it can be, you do need to know that you can't fix it, by saying or doing the right thing. It's something that your ex has to deal with themselves, and they'll carry it with them always to some extent. Now, that doesn't mean that things can't improve with time. As circumstances change, people change. As they learn that they can connect with other people without pain, they'll start to soften up and open up. And I have seen it happen many times. Just don't expect your ex to just, one day wake up as a completely different person. Any change that does happen is going to be very slow and subtle. So if you know that you can't handle a relationship with an avoidant, then really you should stop pursuing one. And number 4, breakups trigger avoidance really more than anything else. Really, breakups trigger our worst feelings, right? Remember, the avoidant attachment style was initially created due to a rejection that your ex felt at a young age. And breakups are the ultimate rejection. It's the loss of the person that you care about the most. So even if they ended things, they still feel like they're being abandoned all over again. Because the reason that they ended the relationship was that they felt that it wasn't working. The relationship became a source of pain and confusion rather than a source of validation and connection. And this was yet another confirmation that connecting with another person is just a mistake, and that all they can do to feel safe is just pull away and retreat into themselves. So if your ex is suddenly ice cold, totally distant, and giving you nothing, just know that this is probably not the new normal, nor is it permanent. It's just that the breakup has created a lot of big feelings for them, and they're dealing with them the only way that they know how. They're avoiding you to avoid their feelings. But as the intensity of those feelings fade with time, so will their avoidant behaviors, until basically things are back where they were before. And 5th, patience is your secret weapon. Now, avoidants tend to be slow to change. And this can actually be an advantage in relationships. They may be less passionate, but they're also less explosive. In fact, one of the reasons that avoidants shrink away from conflict is so that they can be sure of what they want and so that they can choose their words carefully to avoid causing you more pain. But that also means that during a breakup, an avoidant is going to be slow to react, slow to express regret, and ultimately slow to come back to you. And this becomes really frustrating. And when the frustration builds, it can make you lash out at your ex. Now, obviously, this only furthers the divide between the two of you, and it makes them less likely to come back. So you really need to go in the other direction. You need to embody patience as much as you possibly can right now. So stop looking at your phone, expecting to see a text from your ex. Stop counting the days until they change their mind and realize that all that you can offer them. Just stop waiting and live your life. Now, I know this is much easier said than done, but if you can get over this hurdle, you'll find that you feel so much better and less stressed because you're no longer putting all your focus on the breakup. Now, that, of course, means finding distractions and places to put your focus that have really nothing to do with your relationship. Hobbies and interests, work, school, exercise, travel. There are better ways to spend your time than just counting the days since you last saw your ex. And, while things like social media and TV can quiet your thoughts for a little while, you do need to seek out longer-term goals and activities that will really just send your mind in a completely different direction. So, go camping in the woods where you have no cell service, climb a mountain, take up a sport. Just really commit to changing direction, and you'll find that you stop worrying when that next text from your ex will arrive. And on to number 6, you can't change them. You can only change yourself. Now, while it may seem like I'm letting your ex off the hook completely, that is definitely not my intention here. I'm sure that they have done a lot of things to hurt you, and they're continuing to hurt you even now with their behavior. But the reality is, you don't have any control over how they act. Especially now that the two of you are split up, you really have no way to meaningfully affect their actions. And even at the best of times, avoidants are extremely resistant to outside pressure. They feel as though they've had to build themselves up all on their own, so they resent the idea that someone else knows better than them. And this is what creates friction when you try to make demands of them emotionally or ask for more than they're willing to give. So instead, turn that attention on yourself. Ask yourself if what you're doing is going to lead to the outcome you want. Are you gaining reassurance, validation, or intimacy at the cost of pushing your ex away? Wouldn't it be better to take a step back and slow down, even though it might feel uncomfortable and not ideal? Now, this is, of course, a very difficult undertaking. I'm sure that you have a lot of resentment towards your ex, and you know that if they could just change their behavior a little bit, then everything would be perfect. But that is a thought that you're going to need to put aside for now. You can sort out some of these issues once the two of you are really formally back together. And number 7, it is okay to ask for help. Your avoidant ex is not the only one who feels isolated by the breakup, right? It's normal for you to feel like you have to do it all alone. But the truth is, you don't. You can ask for help from your friends and family. You can seek help from a therapist, or you can reach out to an experienced expert like myself. I do offer one-on-one coaching for people who are struggling with their breakup and wanting to reconnect with their ex. You can find out all the details at breakupbrad.com/coaching. And once you sign up, we're able to connect and sort out the issues that you're having with your ex together. I've helped really thousands of people in all kinds of different situations, so I often know just what you need to do to start winning them back. Again, to find out more and sign up today, just go to breakupbrad.com/coaching. And number 8, emotional independence wins back avoidance. Now, all of this advice that we've talked about is crucial if you want to win back your ex, but we still haven't reckoned with the big question here. How can you connect deeply with somebody who thinks that they want independence above all else? Well, the truth is that you need to cultivate emotional independence in yourself. You need to do the work to grow that part of you that makes you feel safe and secure, regardless of what's happening with your partner, with your job, with the world at large. That internal validation is so important if you want a relationship with anyone, but especially with an avoidant, because avoidants can't stand feeling like you rely on them to maintain your mood. No one wants a partner who, they have to spend all their time monitoring and pampering emotionally. These are the people who need constant validation, or they feel lost. They need you to check in with them 20 times a day, or they think that something is wrong. When you're upset, you always end up having to console them. It's exhausting, frankly, and it's not conducive to a long-term relationship. So work on your own expectations and look for sources of validation outside the relationship. And most importantly, within yourself. If you can cultivate this kind of mindset, then no one and nothing can take it away from you. Now, if you want to know more about how you can gain emotional independence, I actually made a whole video on this topic, and I will put the link in the description below and in the pop-up here. It is worth watching if you want a way to make sure that things last this time around. All right, guys, that's it for this one. Thank you for sticking it out all the way to the end. Thanks for liking, subscribing, and otherwise supporting my content. I truly, sincerely appreciate it. Bye for now.